Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
WESN.
When it rains, it pours. Rhetorically, although the last couple of weekends, literally that's what happened to us. And the fact of the matter is, this is going to be a reoccurring decimal. This is going to be an often repeated sentiment. This is going to be the same old that I've said before, and I'll say again, whenever we have rain. Because it's almost a given, we have rain, we have floods. And there is no actual effort, seemingly, to do anything about it beyond the usual. Now, part of that could be the budgetary constraints. More on that on a separate story, because what I thought could have happened did happen. Or at the very least, perceptions have been affected. So I don't know if that's on the cards for a lot of people to just accept, well, no, hold on, how could you just say we have no money? In fact, to be fair, the budgets that are presented to us every year are not that small. How does it seem as though there's so much deficiency with regards to education facilities management, with regards to local government allocations, with regards to protective services, healthcare, education, utilities, so many bills that the government owes. Road works were temporarily suspended for 1 year, and at the end of the day, flood mitigation is essentially, let's pretend that our current drainage infrastructure is sufficient enough, and when it floods, we'll blame things like people dumping. And to some extent, when you look at some of the photos, because among other places, Maraval flooded this time. You have to say this time, because that's the thing. It's like a Russian roulette. You're not entirely sure where will flood, so your proverbial flood life is in the hands of others. When you look at the images, that river there, coming up next to the fast food establishment in Maraval, I'm pretty sure that's not just about dumping garbage in a river that size. I'm pretty sure to some extent it's about the amount of water overwhelming the design or the intention of that waterway, of that part of the drainage infrastructure in the area. The river just couldn't keep up. In fact, we went on a shoot for the last 2 Sundays, and not this week, because we weren't necessarily driving. The rain didn't seem as heavy in that part of Trinidad. But the week before, not only did we see a bridge flood, and this is not the first time I've seen this, our engineering is so suspect. We will put a bridge over the river. Even if the river is not overflowing, the bridge itself will flood, because the bridge, somehow we design bridges to retain water. But then also there was a part in time when we drove uphill, and it was, you drive uphill, and about 30 feet, you drive downhill. A small section that is higher ground more than the land before it or after it on the road. That also was retaining water. We have successfully designed a hill with a road with drains on both sides of said road that will retain water uphill. And yet, our reservoir levels, we could design many reservoirs in our road infrastructure, but we can't actually improve our reservoir capacity. This is just one of those things where the solution somewhat seems obvious. The details is not necessarily obvious, particularly in heavy urbanized areas like Maraval, where one could argue, what was Town and Country doing all that time? Could anyone, I mean, it's probably not all Town and Country's fault or planning or whatever. But could anyone point to me and say, yes, this area, they did their job about as well as could be expected. It has nothing to do with them. Because if that's true, I'm fine with that. But I need someone to tell me, because there's no indication based on what we have witnessed throughout the country that there's any sort of degree of planning to then enforce requirements for drainage. Whenever housing developments are built, new houses are being built, new businesses are being built. If Port of Spain took drainage, about as important as they did with regards to trying to claim buildings that they didn't build and potentially their ownership over is questionable at best, maybe we wouldn't necessarily have those issues in Woodbrook with regards to flooding. And the sad part about it is, this is the kind of things that a government is supposed to be doing. Capital expenditure on infrastructure projects that will improve the lives of citizens and reduce their losses. Because, I'm just speaking about Maraval alone, apparently Orangwa is also flooded out. We're talking about long hours of cleanup, property lost, and then, in the case of elderly citizens, and to some extent, families with young children, there's always the question of how does this impact health and safety? When will it be the big one where you have an elderly couple and essentially the floodwaters are so bad everybody is cut off and they'll be left to fend for themselves? And that's part of the problem. There is the appearance, the perception as though no one is really enforcing any sort of structure with regards to how our urban development is allowed to continue unabated. So Maraval is what it is. It's one valley at this point. I don't know to what extent could be done with regards to the drainage now that you've allowed, private homes to essentially go potentially unchecked. It's not that I know for certain. But it seems as though, no one is actually overseeing these things. And then nobody brings it up, right? Nobody really brings it up. The opposition leader, to be fair, brought it up recently. But we've never heard that from the government as, and moving forward, we will ensure that proper measures are done or proper measures are put in place, that whenever there's new construction, proper drainage plans and the like, and maybe new infrastructure for drainage for new areas that might see development will be done. No, instead we get building HDC homes in flood-prone areas. Now, I don't know what it is about a lack of accountability or enforcement of the rules, but it makes me look at another situation funny, and I might speak more about this later in the week depending on how it goes. But of course, ever since a young man's unfortunate suicide, bullying has become a topic because, hey, when the horse has already bolted from the barn, that's when we worry about closing the door. Okay, one young man has unfortunately taken his own life. We could hopefully prevent other young men and women from following that example. The thing is, what is the recommendation? Let's have anti-bullying laws and put cops in schools. First of all, there's only so many police officers, and we have a crime problem. That's point number one. Second of all, there's only so many good police officers. We have a lack of accountability in the service. That's another problem. Where there are enough bad apples to harm the reputation of the service and cause a lot of negative customer interactions. And we're going to essentially insist that at the very least some of those bad apples will have to go into schools and try to treat with delicate situations where the emotional trauma caused at least potentially, allegedly, in one case, one student to take his own life. And we're going to say, let's not worry about the bad apples now. Let's, this is a priority. So whatever slips through the cracks, slips through the cracks. Conversely, if police leadership knows who the bad apples are, that means that more and more of the good officers will have more and more piled upon them. And this is the catch-22 that you suffer when you don't actually ensure that the foundations of your systems of governance, public security, what have you, are not healthy and managed well. At the end of the day, part of the issue about mismanagement of government services, government entities, is that there are good people in ministries, in public sector entities, in national security services. But the more you mismanage it, the more the good people don't want to be a part of it because they see the uphill battle. And I'll remind you for the umpteenth time, E.D. Stewart, head of the Nursing Association, warned that too many of his members are being held hostage. And I will add, if he did not add, not just by Ministry of Health and the public health sector, but also their own brethren who are not willing to put in the proper amount of work, to have the proper attitude for the job of a healthcare professional. And it's the same thing for police. When the job is too difficult because of all of these extra circumstances to do with bureaucracy and leadership and lack of accountability and blah, 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 poor public perception, not because of what you're doing, but because stigmatization due to association. How many good citizens could have been police officers, but they're being run by all of this nonsense? So we have a police service that I would argue is not 100% healthy, has an important and a very tall order of a task to deal with, that is to say, try to do something about the murder rate, guns and drug smuggling coming into the country, etc., etc. And we're going to add to their plates probably not, there's not a lot of training to deal with school situations on a regular basis. It's one thing if a student is violent, you call in the police. Yeah, you escalate it to the professionals to deal with violence because you don't expect teachers to have to wade into a battlefield and fight off students to keep them in line if they are that belligerent. But those are the exceptions, that's not the norm. But now to treat with bullying. Now the Ministry of Education pushed back on it, but that's the other part of the catch-22. If we were confident that the ministry was handling the situation, I don't think the opposition would have had room to make this recommendation, despite the fact that I think it's not going to be as effective as they would make it seem. Because again, the systems by which we manage things, like the Ministry of Education, I would argue, is not healthy. So why would we expect then it to have the capacity, the proficiency, the capability to deal with these new extraneous situations? It wouldn't. It could barely keep up with its day-to-day workload, and some might argue it doesn't. Leads me back to flooding. We could barely keep up with the flooding, but if it's a case where citizens are losing property and hopefully the structure of their dwellings are not being damaged, because that's a whole other kettle of fish, because the systems we have in place are not sufficient, and the systems we have in place to manage that infrastructure seems to be insufficient, and the commitment to that infrastructure seems to be insufficient. It's an uphill battle, because if we don't manage how we build, where we build, and how much drainage we have, technically speaking, our population is only going to grow. If it starts to shrink, that might solve some issues, but it will cause other problems. So let's not hope for that. it will only continue to grow. And just like water for all will always be a moving target, flood mitigation will always be a moving target. Because the more houses we put down, the more natural drainage of the land absorbing water, of the trees holding the land together, etc., it's going to be removed from certain areas of the country because we all flock to the same areas. Let's not develop the rest. Again, another sign of when systems are not healthy, the consequences, they're going to be unfortunate. And they're interlocking, so one compounds the other. Just like how the education system failures, depending on your opinion, and the police deficiencies / failures, depending on your opinion, they compound each other with school violence and bullying, etc. So too will a lack of planning, a lack of drainage, and a lack of a vision for the development of the island will compound itself and give us this flood situation. All right, but enough about that. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll actually start off the daily review, get into some of the more technical issues and details. Stay tuned. This is Talking About the WESN. We'll be right back after this.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
This holiday season, bring the magic of Christmas home with WESN's Joy of Christmas. Relive timeless classics from the laughter to the heartwarming moments that make the season unforgettable.
Hey, light the lamp, not the rat, light the lamp, not the rat!
Santa's coming to town! Santa! Oh my God!
Oh, baby.
Experience the joy of WESN special productions, crafted to bring you new stories and cherished memories. This year, let WESN bring the joy of Christmas to your home.
Merry Christmas, Charlie Brown!
Catch the spirit, catch the joy.
Anchors away. May the force be with you.
Only on WESN, your content capital.
My name is Dr. Stephen Carroll, the CEO at Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist, and we are committed to making good private healthcare affordable.
For all your medical needs, including dental, radiology, laparoscopy, behavioral and mental health, along with many other services, contact us for more information at 235-5479.
Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
All right, enough of my personal musings / ramblings / verbal diarrhea. It's time to start off today's daily review. All right, so As is custom in TNT, there is a union, and they are negotiating for back pay and salary increases. Because it seems as though we could just never figure out an equitable way to do this, c'est la vie. Now, what makes this interesting is coming down to the end. So the setup. The West Indian, let me just get this whole thing. West Indian group of university teachers, they're currently trying to negotiate for salary increases and a lot of back pay. Now, depending on how much the increase is, because the Minister of Finance, he spoke in Parliament and basically said, based on what it is that the WIGUT, West Indian Group of University Teachers, what they're asking for, it will come to the amount of $701 million just to pay off, I think, the back pay alone. Sorry, wait. The back pay, right. And then it would be another 79 and 12 million recurrent expenditure, some high amount of money, right? And he's pushing back against their demands. Now, $701 million for just one group of back pay, that's a lot. And to some extent, and again, you know, more could be done maybe to delve into this. Maybe I'll try and get somebody from the WIGUT on. But if that is the actual figure, no matter how justified the university lecturers and professors and staff believe their situation is, on some level, that's an alarming figure to say it's not entirely $1 billion, but you know, we're starting to get to near to that you want a one-off payment. Because there are a lot of people in the society that they can't demand a wage increase. There are a lot of people in the private sector that aren't getting wage increases. And part of what makes this questionable is, well, technically they already got wage increases. It might not be to their preference or in their opinion, that is to say the union and its members' opinion, sufficient, but technically they got it, right? Now, again, some of these are years long ago, they're still negotiating for. I find it's quite ridiculous, 2024, and we're negotiating for salary increases for 2015. That is a common occurrence, that is too common of an occurrence, in my opinion, but this is Trinidad and Tobago. We apparently love to do things so late, it gets ridiculous, right? But again, I could understand that $700 million is not something the government could just afford to shell out for one group of workers, because that's the thing. That's the thing that I think the WIGUT doesn't seem to understand. What they're asking for is not $700 million. What they're asking for is a precedent that will allow other unions to say, what about us? Because you have $700 million for them, what about us? It won't necessarily be fair to give the university teachers everything that they want and to not give other people everything that they want. And therein lies part of the problem, right? Because honestly, there is a world where the ethical, responsible thing for the government to do is to not give in. And of course, UE operations and the students there will suffer, and who knows? Yeah, listen, the university teachers might actually be justified. But to some extent, if the government can't afford it, it's a rock and a hard place, right? And again, what about the other unions? The PSA, Tutor, OWTU, and so on and so on, that had to take 4%. The pilots, I believe, they had to take 4%, right? The Social and Welfare Association for the TTPS, 4%, etc., etc. Fire Service Second Division. Down the line, 4%, 4%, 4%, right? That's basically what the government has been telling everybody. And I am willing to accept the government's position because I have seen numerous deficiencies with regards to cash flow that has caused the government to end up in controversial situations. So I have seen them get in trouble for not having enough money to go around. That's why I'm willing. They're not going to put themselves in a hot seat over not having enough cash for certain aspects of government if they don't have to. If the government was flush with money, they'll spread it around. And again, it's not like these budgets are that much smaller, if at all, to the PP budget. So I'm not entirely sure what went wrong, or what is it that their priorities are wrong with regards to these current budgets. But with that said, the SRC, Salaries Review Commission, is the gift that keeps on giving. And the punchline is already there, should be already on your screen. But essentially, a quote from the head of the WIGTU. Because I am willing to accept that the government has not enough money. Because I've seen the signs, and this has been an ongoing thing. This is not just a fly-by-night latest thing, right? But when the Salary Review Commission continues to say, no, we need to increase government salaries, just because it might be affordable from the numbers standpoint, one prime minister is not going to cost $700 million in back pay. One commissioner of police is not going to cost $700 million in back pay. Now, granted, it'll be real hilarious if the amount of money that the SRC's increases are going to add to the wage bill of the government is about $700 million, because that'll be very poetic, ironic, and it will make this point all the more pertinent and relevant and significant. This is what the president of the WIGTU, Indira Rampasad, had to say. And it's quoted in the article. This is not about the government not having money, and we've seen the Salaries Review Commission report. And if they accept it now, nobody can say the government doesn't have money, because this is millions in back pay for politicians and very huge sums for the Prime Minister, President, and other politicians. So the question of not having money is not one we're prepared to accept. Checkmate. That's why when it came up early in the year, you nip it in the bud with strong language to say it is rejected. You don't say, redo this recommendation, and then when it comes back, you're kind of silent about it, because secretly, at least, it can be assumed or speculated for this to be the case, that maybe, or rather, maybe I should put it in a question, are you hoping that this will all boil over and you could essentially just pass your salary increases in if no one kicks up much of a fuss? Was that what you were hoping for? Because not a lot of government people spoke out against this. Only one, as far as I am aware, and he might have put his head out on the chopping block. He might have stuck his neck out too far, because I don't know how many of his peers may or may not have been looking at him like, why are you messing up our money right now? But the problem is, again, you can't accept anything more than 4% and not look like, well, evil people to the public, since essentially that's what you're giving others, and you're not willing to accept yourself. Evil, disingenuous people who are selfish, self-centered, and don't really care about the public servants, much less the rest of us. That's how it will look if you accept more than 4%. And I could say that in full confidence because one union has pulled it out. Congratulations. I myself, despite the fact that I am acknowledging that one, the government doesn't have money. Two, depending on the amount of increases when you add it up, giving the Prime Minister and the opposition leader and the Commissioner of Police increases should not break the bank. These are high-end salaries we're talking about. Not that many people, right? Unless I don't know how many permanent secretaries are involved and other senior government officials. So it might equate to the amount of members in the WIGUT. But unless the government now could really justify in terms of the accounting numbers, this is how much the SRC recommendations will cost, This is how much the UE workers want. See, here, a lot less than what the UE workers want. But even then, even if we go through that exercise, it's still not going to look good. And because you seemingly didn't want to commit to nipping this in the bud so that it can't be used against you, here it is now. A union is calling you out. And I personally don't feel comfortable telling them to stop in this situation. Because on principle, they have a point. Because what did I say? If the government gives the WIGUT all that they ask for, how could they tell the other unions no? But it works both ways. If they take their increases, what is the moral justification for them telling anybody nothing more than 4%? It disappears in a puff of logic. It's almost as though none of these people ever had any leadership training whatsoever. And we have selected them to technically be our leaders. Now, to some extent, the opposition has come out to say, the UNC has come out to say, we reject the pay hike. It's not the right time. This is, this is the obvious thing to say. And that's what makes this all the more frustrating. The opposition probably could have done this faster, by the way, and done this more repeatedly and even stronger. But regardless, some people could say, well, of course they're going to say it because it's disagreeing with the government and blah, 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 blah. No. It's not obvious in the sense of, in this situation, we just say whatever is opposite to what the government says. It's obvious in the sense of, this is obviously going to be unpopular. Why do we want to wade into these deep waters unnecessarily? Why do we want to swim with the man-eating sharks by choice? Why do we want to sacrifice a pound of our flesh by choice? Because there's an election coming up. Now granted, this is the catch-22, and this is why one could think they might want to push this SRC thing through, and the opposition probably is not going to do all that much to stop it. For two reasons. One, they'll enjoy the increase in salaries, and two, it's one hell of a stick to beat the head of the PNM with, to bash them for the rest of the year leading up to the elections. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they will actually fight really hard to stop it from going through, which will give them an even bigger stick, to be honest, whether they're successful or not. But also, regardless of what their intentions are, I would argue that would be the right thing to do. But the thing is, this also will affect their pension. So the Prime Minister wants to retire. And given the state of the country right now, it might be like the time of the NAR, where you will be forced to do unpopular things more and more than what the PNM has already had to do. And you'll probably only survive one term. Whoever wins this next election, whoever is the Prime Minister, might not survive more than a term, might not get re-elected, assuming it's not Dr. Keith Rowley going up again. So you get the wage increases on a sacrificial election year anyway. This is going with my co-host theory, where it seems as though neither side really wants to have to govern the country during this upcoming period of adversity. So maybe they do sacrifice things, push the wage increases through. Those who retire, well, their pension gets increased, so... What about the public servants? Their pensions get an increase? So, again, when the systems of how you run things are unhealthy, it will cause more problems. This is not just about high-end public servant salaries, but rather this is going deep into a leadership function and into, quite frankly, it's touching on the very fabric of what it means to be a Trimegonian. Because if this wage increase goes through, I'll have a hard time believing any politician in Parliament that did not fight against it when they say anything that alludes to the fact that I am one of you. That is to say, that those politicians stand with the people, act for the people, and are of the people. I'll have a hard time believing that, believing any rhetoric that says that. But let's wait and see how this thing unfolds. I suspect other unions should probably utilize this issue, but they might not, for fear of the government will then say no to the SRC, it'll become a non-issue, and they might lose leverage. I don't know. Or the government might hold it against them. You pressured us not to get our wage increase. Well, you definitely are getting what you want. That's the nature of the political game. And unfortunately, it's never clear with regards to the unions if they're playing it or not. But we know that the politicians are always playing it to some degree. And that's why it's hard to fully buy in that everything that they do and say, at least to some degree, has the interests of the nation at heart. Wait it very carefully. Let's take a break, and we'll welcome our new media ambassador. Well, I'm not too sure if he will be our new regular media ambassador, but we'll welcome the TTPS's media ambassador. Stay tuned to talk about the WESN. We'll be right back after this.
SM Group International Limited, your solutions partner for the latest innovations, brands and competent staff to meet your needs. We provide products and services in the following divisions: executive services, event rental and services, power and heavy equipment, construction and property management, food and beverage, aggregate and sales and distribution. Check out more on our products and services at www.smgrouptt.com. Contact us at 221-7445 or email at info@smgrouptt.com. We are SM Group International, your solutions partner.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
This holiday season, bring the magic of Christmas home with WESN's Joy of Christmas. Relive timeless classics from the laughter to the heartwarming moments that make the season unforgettable.
Hey, light the lamp, not the rat, light the lamp, not the rat!
Santa's coming to town! Santa! Oh my God!
Oh, baby.
Experience the joy of WESN special productions, crafted to bring you new stories and cherished memories. This year, let WESN bring the joy of Christmas to your home.
Merry Christmas, Charlie! Charlie Brown!
Catch the spirit, catch the joy.
Anchors away. May the force be with you.
Only on WESN, your content capital.
My name is Dr. Stephen Carroll, the CEO at Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist, and we are committed to making good private healthcare affordable.
For all your medical needs, including dental, radiology, laparoscopy, behavioral and mental health, along with many other services, contact us for more information at 235-5479.
Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
And we're back here on talking about the WSND Content Capital. Allow me to reintroduce myself, Sean Michael Small here. But I say that because I'm going to reintroduce a man to you that is no stranger to talking about, although it's been a while. But we are glad to welcome him back. I'm not sure if this is going to be a permanent fixture or...
I'm not sure.
You're not sure.
Yeah.
But at least for today, we have with us, is it still acting ASP?
Yeah, still
Christopher
acting.
Arun?
Yes.
So, I mean, I won't ask you about that because I know that's a whole other kettle of fish.
Yeah.
But welcome to Talking Point once again.
Thanks for having me.
So, first of all, you're still with the gender-based unit?
No, I'm actually out of that unit. I'm with the transport division now.
Okay,
yeah.
But ironically, we're here to talk about...
16 days of activism concerning gender-based violence. It's 16 days starting today, the 25th of November, through the 10th of December, where a number of outreach programs, interventions will be utilized by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service to highlight the need for the TTPS and to raise awareness about gender-based violence in Trinidad and Tobago.
It's 16 days.
16 days of activism.
I don't know why, because I think I saw some of the releases and articles.
Yeah.
But I misheard you and I put 60 days. So
no, 16.
16.
Yeah.
So, of course, this is not necessarily anything new with regards to gender-based violence.
No, it's an annual event. And, the TTPS encourages other stakeholders to participate, cooperate with them, to raise the awareness, educate persons, and create avenues to assist, especially women and girls. Because although gender-based violence affects all genders, it primarily affects women and girls when you look at the statistics. So worldwide, 1 out of every 3 women or girls are abused or are faced with some type of abuse in their lifetime.
And I mean, of course, coming out of the pandemic, there were maybe, or arguably, I don't know if this was because of just how media reported it, but there were a lot of murder-suicides, a lot of complaints or concerns about gender-based violence, everybody being, cooped up. Now that we are a couple years well away from that, are there any signs that perhaps there's been any sort of penetration with these awareness campaigns? Because up to a couple weeks ago, I had a discussion with a friend of mine, and at least in her experience, there is still this thing that she has noticed all her life that doesn't necessarily, with regards to well, when a man is beating a woman, people don't want to get involved.
Right.
And in case of some victims, it's one of those things that I'll just never understand. Some women will say and fully believe, well, if he doesn't beat me, he don't love me. And I'll never fully understand what that is. But it seems as though there's certain things that it's not just ignorance, but rather something that's been passed down. And I don't know, is there any sense that perhaps there been any kind of pushback against that?
No, definitely in the opposite direction. We've actually seen progress in terms of gender-based violence, where we get more reports now because of the amount of work the TTPS does, the Gender-Based Violence Unit does, in Trinidad and Tobago. So you see a lot more reports now emanating from or coming out of the pandemic. There was no real statistics to tell because of the Gender-Based Violence Unit being formed in 2020.
Right.
There was no data before that could really say, listen, there was a difference and the pandemic caused more reports. Because what could have happened is that when the Gender-Based Violence Unit was created, we got more reports merely because there was now a unit specifically designed to assist persons with those type of reports. So there's no real way for us to tell at this time if that there's a difference between before, during, or after. But what we have seen is that there's a consistent amount of reports being made because of the awareness we conduct, because of the outreach programs, the panel discussions, and the services we provide at the Gender-Based Violence Unit, as the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. We encourage persons to make reports, so therefore we continue to get a substantial amount of reports.
So it's just one of those things where it's not that it didn't exist, but rather now the framework exists to allow, well, more awareness, so more reporting.
More assistance. So, gender-based violence is about creating awareness in education. It's about sensitization. It's about response, it's about understanding, and it's about helping persons to overcome those issues.
And I guess part of the ongoing effort is to try to educate the victims with regards to this is not normal, this is not right, this is what you need to do to protect yourself, don't accept.
Well, that's just bare minimum. The whole thing about educating is about educating victims and survivors, so we call our victims survivors. It's about educating survivors how to overcome these issues of domestic violence. And it's also about educating the offenders, the perpetrators, about how to behave, how to react, how to control themselves and treat with themselves.
Yeah, I mean, this might seem very weird, and it's not to defend the actions of perpetrators. But to some extent, I did mention the fact that it seems as though some of this is passed down. I'm hesitant to say culture.
It's cultural, it's tradition.
I mean, right, unfortunately.
No, we live in a multicultural society, and we are impacted by our ancestry, our traditions, our culture. And those things will happen in any multicultural society. You will have to face those issues.
So now, I guess the question is, to some extent, does it happen because in some cases, it's not necessarily that the perpetrators are naturally violent prone, but rather they themselves don't actually see this as an issue. They see this as natural. Yeah. So to some extent, it's due to...
They see it as a norm that they want to... sorry, not that they want to, but they react like that.
This is the way to do it.
This is the way to do it. And what we are saying as the gender-based violence, as the TTPS, we need to overcome those norms. We all have our own crosses to bear. We have to overcome our issues in order to treat people, especially women and girls, in the appropriate manner.
And of course, just because this may be a norm doesn't mean that it's legal.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. If you break the law, there will still be consequences. Yeah. Now, I don't know if you could reveal data with regards to that, but generally speaking, as the work has gone on, how has it been trying to get some of these cases to trial? Because one of the issues with domestic violence, obviously, is the main witness at times tends to not want to cooperate after a period of time.
Yeah, I mean, as an organization that is legally bound to address issues in terms of crime, we tend to focus on issues of crime. However, we also, at the Gender-Based Violence Unit, we also assist with persons making reports and getting assistance. So we refer you to the the NGOs and the faith-based organizations that could assist the social intervention as well. So not all the time would a survivor want criminal action. I must say though, and I must caution persons, that once you make a report to the police, they will take action against the perpetrator. Whether it's a simple warning, whether it's to visit the home, whether it's to visit the person, and let them know that a report has been made, we must act. So the police can't just sit there. You come to the station, you make a report and say, well, I don't want police action. Once you make a report against a perpetrator, the police must act. There's no law that says that we cannot not go and not tell the perpetrator, because at the end of the day, we have seen it time and time again. The police fail to act, and the outcome is not in the favor of the survivor. So the police have taken a stance that we must act. But it does not mean that if you come to us, we will charge somebody as well. So what we are saying, if you just want assistance, we would refer you to the social intervention departments, organizations that could offer the assistance you need. You might need assistance with counseling, you might need assistance with housing, you may need assistance with food, you might even need assistance with getting a phone card. There are organizations out there that assist with these issues. And we are encouraging persons that whether you come to the police or not, you can go to these organizations.
Right.
You can call 800-SAVE. I mean, Trinidad has gone a long way by just having that toll-free number, 800-SAVE, to get assistance for domestic violence. There's Rape Crisis Society, there's Women of Substance in Tobago, there's the Coalition Against Domestic Violence. There are organizations, both NGOs and faith-based organizations, that would assist you whether or not you come to the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. What we would offer the Trinidad and Tobago Police is some type of action, social and criminal.
Right, so it's not that you're saying if you make a report, we're just going to arrest the person.
No.
But
an investigation must be done.
Right, but obviously these things are delicate, so you're well aware that once police officers essentially intervene in any capacity, it's like a signal that will elicit some kind of response that may not have happened. And dare I say, this is one of those catch-22s where to some extent people need to be informed of the reality. But this is not to dissuade them to not come in.
No, definitely. If you need assistance, you come in to the gender-based violence. We have in each division. Now, we're not based with the division, so we are a separate entity to the divisions. So it might be in Port of Spain, it might be in South, it might be in Southwestern, it might be in Tobago. We have gender-based violence units attached. We are part of the Special Victims Department. So you have the Child Protection Unit, the Sexual Offences Unit, and the Gender-Based Violence Unit, all amalgamated to form the Special Victims Department. So all these officers are attached to this department, are trained in how to deal with reports with children, women, men, and special victims, if you want to call it that.
Right, yeah, I mean, as much as people won't understand, men will also have its own certain nuances and social stigmas that have to be treated with too.
Of course, and we get a number of reports from men as well. But you don't see much of it going to charges, because traditionally and with experience, men don't tend to want to press charges.
And one of the interesting things, I think some people will say, well, how men are going to be abused? Could it be that in some cases... No, but could it be that in some cases the men are like, yes, I know if I fight back, I could beat her. Now, in some cases, the men are smaller. It's not so simple. But in some cases, men will take the physical abuse because they don't want... I mean, to some extent, if they fight back, a lot of people in the public will blame him even though he's responding. So it's better to take the abuse and maybe report it than fighting back yourself.
Yeah, correct. It's always better to treat with it after than to treat with it inappropriately in the beginning. We see a number of reports where the men are actually the ones that are faced with a lot of the abuse first and then tend to fight back inappropriately and cause a worse situation. So we see a number of cases like that. I mean, we do treat with it accordingly, because you have two parties in a dispute. It might end up one party being more physical than the other party, but one party may have used verbal abuse against the other party first. And we understand these situations as well. So a thorough investigation is conducted to determine who's really the wrong perpetrator here and who is the perpetrator.
Now, one of the other things, when you said that, you know, you were advising the public, if you make a report to us, we have to act.
We must.
One of the things that I'm wondering, and I'm hoping that this is not the case here, but of course in other jurisdictions abroad, you always hear about stories about frivolous accusations or weaponized accusations.
Yeah, we have come across frivolous accusations in which the other party was charged for making a false report or wasting police time.
Right, because they might have maybe they wanted to scare the other person, but they're like, no, I don't want them to be arrested or some foolishness like that.
No, we see cases like when children are involved, you have frivolous reports against spouses where they try to gain an advantage. Custody matters. You have reports where frivolous reports are made because there's a third party, an intimate third party involved. And so we understand that. So we must capture all sides of the story. So not because they make a report means we're just going to lock up somebody and charge them. No, there are cases where we must act immediately to safeguard persons from harm or death. We must act immediately. There have been many cases, including with servicemen, service personnel, where their firearms were seized in the initial stage, where actually we write to the heads of the divisions and we stop them from being issued firearms from the police stations and the departments. And it doesn't, and even in prison service, defense force, and other arms of the security body, and whether or not even private security officers. So of course. So
of course, and just private FUL holders as well.
Yes, and we would seize your firearm until the investigation is completed. It might take days, it might take weeks, it might take months, it might take years. But the idea is to safeguard the survivor from the perpetrator, even while the investigation is going on.
Not to go into too much details, to reveal too much of methods and means, but one of the things that I've always kind of wondered when you're trying to safeguard someone that's in a situation like this, and maybe they have hopefully reached the point where they are actively pursuing their own safety. But we live in a small country.
Yes, we do.
Like, it's not necessarily that easy. If you're in the States and you say, well, okay, someone is in a bad situation, you'll move cities. That could be, ridiculously far away compared to TNT, which is you're never more than an hour away from the coastline or from maybe an hour and a half away from any other point of Trinidad, and a 15-minute flight, whatever it takes you to drive to Piarco to Tobago. Like, how much is that of a challenge with regards to trying to safeguard victims? And the reason why I say that is perhaps this is something that victims themselves need to understand. Don't let it get so bad that your options are now limited and it's reached a certain point. Are there challenges? How challenging is it?
There are sometimes challenges, but what we do, we work with the organizations that provide safe houses. We work with government and non-governmental organizations that provide safe houses. We also assist survivors in creating something called an escape plan, where we work with regional partners. We might work with international partners to assist them to get out. We don't provide funding in that case, but we do assist you as a survivor to get out of the situation.
So, like, some people might not have relevant travel documents. Would this be something that not necessarily, you all can't wave your hand at immigration and say, do it now, but you all could at least try to advocate for them?
We work with organizations that assist you with getting those documents.
Right. Yeah. So potentially, depending on how bad it gets, if the person needs to relocate.
Yeah, because we have charged persons in the past, and the survivor would have relocated, and they would come back or probably attend the matter virtually.
One of the other things, this whole cultural issue, right? And of course it's passed down, whether by example or by verbal, I guess you could say, telling the children, this is how it is. Right. This is how you should be. Son, this is how you handle your wife. Daughter, this is what it means to be a good wife, quote unquote, not that I'm condoning it.
Yeah.
Like, how much work is being done to try to cut that off?
Well, that's why our outreach programs are geared towards educating and sensitization. So the educators are educating young girls and to create that generational distance, that break in the generational curse, if you want to say, in terms of becoming victims and survivors of domestic violence. So we start at the youngest ages. We go into schools, we go into organizations and areas that need that educating, and we educate young girls, we educate young boys through community policing, through the department outreach programs, for them to understand that they should not be survivors or victims of domestic violence, how to treat each other, how to deal with situations of aggressiveness. Yeah, how to behave in society, how a boy should behave, how a man should behave, how a young girl should behave, how a child should behave, and how an adult should behave. So we teach, and these are what the outreach programs are geared towards, teaching young people. So this is one of the first steps we take in educating our citizens, with the young people especially. Then we go move on to the adults. So we go out into the communities, using through community-oriented policing departments, through the Special Victims Department and other departments, to assist persons in those communities with overcoming and educating them on cases of domestic violence.
Do you all also work with the Ministry of Education to ensure that teachers also are part of a unified message? Because, again, it's from the culture. So,
yeah. So we work with all arms of all the ministries. It's a how to put it? We work with all the stakeholders. But what we encourage and what we're trying to encourage is that all stakeholders are not just government. It's also non-government. It's private institutions.
Private schools as well.
So we need people, we need all arms and stakeholders to get involved with gender-based violence and to put in their part, to do their part to assist survivors to overcome issues. So you might be an employer, and you might be an employer, you have an employee, and they are going through a situation where they're going through domestic violence. It's about sometimes the survivor does not know who to turn to for help. It's about giving them the information, educating them, or sensitizing them. Listen, let me help you get onto this person, that person. Let me help you to get onto this organization. It might be as simple as assisting them with rent for a month to get out of the situation. Employers can do a lot, or as I said, it's all arms of society. All stakeholders can do their part to assist survivors in overcoming gender-based violence.
Now, my last question has to do with what might, for some parents or youth development stakeholders, might be a bit of a boogeyman that gets a lot of blame and maybe sometimes too much, because we have an issue that is potentially cultural here with this.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, we lament when American culture or foreign culture kind of permeates and maybe takes precedence in whatever way locally. And of course, with the internet, that's been easier, right? Now, but I've seen young people not just use the internet for frivolous things, but also to learn things about politics, business, about various industries, manufacturing, what have you. I know of anecdotal cases. Is there any sign that perhaps the internet as a tool to maybe broaden the horizons of the population is kind of helping do some of the work? Because these 16 days of activism, it's not a local thing, it's an international thing, right? So yes, there might be bad things there that will encourage bad behavior as well.
Yeah.
But is there any sign? Because I do think this is one of the things that in some ways benefits us. We don't have to travel to experience more.
Right.
And this could positively impact and maybe help your job?
Yes, of course. I mean, the TTPS itself does use a lot of media, social, traditional media, to get the information out there. You can go onto the Facebook, the TTPS website, the TTPS Facebook page. There's also some other social apps that you can utilize that the TTPS has, I think, LinkedIn and whatnot. But beside the TTPS, there's a number of organizations that utilize social media and traditional media and the internet to get information out there. I'm encouraging persons, especially young persons, to look at these sites and these apps to get information, to assist even their peers and their colleagues and their classmates and their friends and their family, to assist them to get the information to get out of whatever situation that they might be in. So yes, so we can use the internet, we can use social media, we can use the World Wide Web to assist persons who are experiencing issues of domestic violence, especially women and girls.
All right, so we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll open up the phone lines and we'll potentially continue the discussions. Stay tuned, this is Talking Point on WESN, the Content Capital. We'll be right back after this.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios. But they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for. It's called loss and damage. And we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
Nah, you don't need to register nothing. We can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
We believe in different criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploited the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
And we're back here on talking about the WESN show. Michael Small, joined by acting ASP Christopher Arun. And now is the time we open the phone lines. Of course, there are some more bits of information that the ASP can give us, but we do have Diego Martin on the line. Just a reminder, please mute your television when you come on air. Don't try to have the conversation through or with the television because there's a delay. It'll be confusing. With that said, Diego Martin, good morning. Caller, you on air.
Good morning, Mr. Small and your co-host, ASP Arun. Mr. Small, the first thing I want to talk about is the SRC and the rubrics that they basically have used to propose an increase for senior public servants. And my question is, why can't they not use that same rubric for lower level public servants? And I believe the fact that they don't want to use it is a sort of discrimination. How can you give the higher earning salary public servants an increase and the lower level public servants a very paltry increase? And they all have to face the same price in the supermarket. They all have to face the same traffic jams, etc. So I believe something has to be looked at. And I'm going to show you where this whole problem was created by the lack of insight to basically use a scarce resources, that is earnings. Because the government in one state enterprise, that is the NGC, they blew away about 700 million on two projects. When one of the trains, the methanol train, the natural gas trains, were mothballed and they were spending money on upkeeping it, and then the NGC invested in another plant, and according to the Minister of Finance, they can't afford 700 million to pay for the public servants, but you blow it away because your allocation of a scarce resource was flawed. The other issue now, I want to talk directly to the TTP officer, ASP Arun. Sir, I like your outreach program. You're selling something that you might not be able to achieve because right now, the credibility of the police service is a big question mark. Confidence in the police service as a citizen is very low. The recent issue with the 5 and 7 officers has further added to drop in confidence level. I have an issue with that, and I believe an investigation was forthcoming. 3 junior officers, I'm using junior officers, has to go before a tribunal. My question is, why is only junior officers has to go to the tribunal? I like to know, and I suspect the investigator is another senior police officer who possibly, I don't know the name, I haven't seen it, is possibly a DCP, who might have been the person who headed the investigation and the charges of these officers. If is the police, the DCP, is responsible for that investigation, I believe that investigation is flawed because there is a she basically was part of the problem, so she has to take leave, and she should have been senior enough to say, look, I'm not participating in that investigation because she might be complicit in the whole investigation. So I like that tribunal to be public. I might think it might be better to be independent because I believe it will be something similar to the day of policing when no police officer is held accountable. Go on and have a nice morning.
Thank you, caller. We have Marvel on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Hello?
Morning, caller.
Hi. Morning.
Morning, morning.
Sorry, but I just wanted to make a report on, if you could do that for me, because I knew you were on a topic. What happened? We have a big hole in, come and dig up a hole in Breeze Road. But what happened? A car could go down in it, or if it's about 10 feet down. So I just tried to make a report to see if WASA could come and fix this report for this thing for us, please, because it's real terrible. Right now, people can't drive on you. They got to park up in the main road, and you might get your car thing. I'm sorry, I just want to call to report it now.
Sure. All right, so that goes out to WASA. In Maraval, I assume on the main road, if I'm not mistaken, there's, or one of the roads in Maraval, there's a hole big enough for a car to potentially go into. I'm not too sure if maybe there.
That might be the whole Maraval,
right? Their response teams may be kind of busy right now. Maybe they're not. I don't know. We'll see if and how WASA responds. Maybe we will make a call to inquire. I'm not too sure how that will work with regards to reporting when, we don't actually have direct information.
Maybe they have online access for persons to make reports. I don't know.
Something to look into, caller. But with that said, we do have another caller on the line, San Fernando. Good morning, caller. You on here?
Morning, Sean.
Morning.
Morning, ASP Arun.
Morning.
What division is, what section is he working on against ASP? I'm trying to remember.
Transport branch.
Transport is same as traffic?
No. Transport branch. What we do at Transport branch, we deal with all the police vehicles, the walkie-talkies, the generators for stations.
Okay, so they give you an extra job.
Yeah.
There was a time several months ago when ASPRE was on the program, and I made a comment about the blue wall of the police service.
Yeah.
And he took some offense with that.
The blue wall.
And I see this with this issue. The blue wall seems to be alive and well. And I understand that you all are trying to do the best, and I understand the Professional Standards Bureau did their job. So there is still an element inside there that's trying to undermine the situation, even though the PSB because it's two sections of the police service that seem to be at odds. Because one for long where people didn't come to court and where they should have come to court in that issue with those officers. But I'm still having some hope that you all on top of things. I really hope the what you call it, the commissioner does her job and really takes some disciplinary action against those gentlemen or ladies. Now, I want to say this, Sean, about the Salary Review Commission report with some of those salaries. I think some of those salaries are justified. Despite all what people are saying about how high it is, the commissioner for police have no right to be making $39,000 a month in this country. No, sorry, $31,000 a month. The commissioner of police, with all this headache, the Chief Justice making $50,000 a month. There are some positions where the salary has to be increased. Whether or not the public likes it, it has to go up. For the level of I know people and middle-level management in some companies in this country that making more than the Chief Justice. Making more than the Chief Justice. So I am not in total agreement with some of these things, but there are some, and I think the Salary Review Commission needs to put out some separate reports, or at least the situation should be where they can adopt in the parliament, the government say we'll adopt certain parts of the report and don't accept certain parts, because some of those position salaries need to be increased. One other thing I have to say is, Sean, on Friday, quickly. On Friday, I made a comment about some issues. You went off on a rant on after my contribution. And I want to say this to you, Sean. You are the same person that almost every program, at the end of your program, you know what you say?
Yeah.
Remember your allegiance to the Republic. But how you want the Republic to get fixed if it is that you only keep criticizing, Sean? The Republic we can't have allegiance if it is that we're not loyal. And if we are loyal, then we have to take a position where we have to look at making it better. And when you went off on that jump, you tried to discredit everything that I said about trying to do better. Me and Dabadi, and I was so disappointed, and that you did that, and then you're still telling us, remember our allegiance to the Republic. So have a good day, Sean.
All right, cool. Now, to be fair, I was afraid that some people might think it was directed at you and Dawidi. My rant, I was upset more about the general situation because it is very frustrating. I have seen the frustration in people who, they're not just showing up to get their check, they're actually trying to fix the system, and they literally get nowhere for years until they get so frustrated they give up. And that's just one of the ongoing issues with regards to certain aspects of the public service and some of the problems we face. And that's why I said what I said. And that's why I think we kind of had to fix the top before we could really make any headway with all of the details. But we have Shagonas on the line, so I won't go any further there on that. Good morning, caller, on here. Caller, good morning. Go ahead, caller. Morning, you're on here. Not too sure if he didn't hear me or if he's cutting out.
Morning.
Shagonas, Professor, you might have to call the other line because you're in and out on this line. I don't know why this seems to happen consistently with you. I don't know if you could hear me, but if you could call back on the other line. I
mean, quickly,
if you want to address.
Yeah, some of your callers spoke about the recent
the collapse of the two cases.
Two cases. Now, there is a process that came into effect, I believe it was in January this year, called the AJIPA process. The AJIPA process is just a faster way to get a matter before the High Court as opposed to the older way. Now, what I could tell you is that when the case...
This is not just police cases.
Yeah, basically...
Going to the master.
Yeah.
It's cutting out certain pre-trial stuff.
Yeah, I don't have all the details as to why the case would have collapsed, quote unquote, but there are sanctions that the master can cause on the police or the case or the state's case, because some of the cases are represented by state attorneys that that could warrant dismissal or what they call a discharge. It doesn't stop the state from re-indicting the officers or re-indicting a person on the same charge. So they could be re-indicted or the charge could be relayed in the same matter and go before the master again.
Based on how the master dismissed it or discharged it the first time?
Yeah, so it's not an absolute situation where it's totally dismissed and that kind of thing. And then another caller spoke about a blue wall. I mean, and building back the confidence in the TTPS. Now, when you look at you have cases where persons are being arrested, police officers are being arrested.
Yeah.
Not occasionally, very often, in a country that seems to have corrupt officers. I know it does seem that it creates a lack of confidence in the TTPS, but you must take cognizance of the fact that we are still arresting and putting officers who are deemed innocent until proven guilty before the courts of Trinidad and Tobago.
I'll have to ask you to take a pause in there because we have Shagonas waiting, hopefully on the other line. Good morning, caller. You're on air.
Good morning, Sean, and your guest.
Morning.
The problem with the police is the same thing with the whole public service. The government is not enforcing the laws. Right? You look at the police and the parking in Port of Spain or all along the Eastern Mediterranean Road and all these things. You seem to agree with the government there's a shortage of money. And that is not so. The government, if you have a shortage of money, you have to find out why. If you're not collecting your money, every few years you hear the government get up and talk about how much people owing HDC, and then they're going to collect the money, and next 2 years they come back and the same money still owing, right? You have a problem with the UE salary increase, but you're not taking into account how much people involved. I am sure that the average amount is much less than they give the Prime Minister, who is the cause of all the problems. Any questions, gentlemen?
No caller.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, the whole thing about, I understand what they're saying. I just don't know if the math, I'll agree with your math, but I don't necessarily think I disagree with what you said about the situation in UE. I think the problem is it's not so much the numbers, it's the principle of the thing, and I'll get into that if we have time later. But just want to wrap this up. You were saying about, well, I guess to some extent it's a catch-22. We have to trust the process, but to some extent, and I made mention opening the show where I feel like there are a lot of things in the country that's not really healthy. We may have laws or regulations that are obsolete. So to some extent now, with regards to the process of crime fighting in general, and then policing the bad apples in particular, like, at least for me, I'll speak for myself, I have a lot of questions on the process. So it's not that I don't want to trust the people doing the work, it's that the process itself might be not sufficient enough to get the job done, if that makes sense.
To some extent. So, I mean, there is the process. We have to follow the process. And, I mean,
you don't have a choice.
Yeah, we are a young country. We're still learning. Where some countries had 200-300 years to reach where they are now, we have, 60-something years? So we have to reach there. And we could take the experience and the information from other countries and utilize it here to better our state.
One of the callers, Diego Martin, I think he brought this up. And I think as much as I am very critical of the commissioner, maybe one of the earliest critics of her, because I saw the signs of what I didn't like early on.
Yeah.
But with that said, he was questioning why isn't she being held directly responsible and part of whatever investigation. And to some extent, while on principle, yes, the buck ends at the top seat, on a practical level, the first people in line are the people that are directly involved with the day-to-day of whatever the matter is, and that's why it's going to be junior officers first and senior officers after, if at all. Is that fair?
Yeah, you have the ground crew that interacts mostly with the public and carries out the day-to-day functions of the TTPS. So, you know, they are the ones that would get involved in a lot of the aspects of policing from time to time.
So, like, if you're investigating an incident, you would first go to the people, that's the first on the list. You were doing the job the day-to-day. You need to answer what went wrong. And then, depending on what they say, if there was interference from a senior or whatever.
Seniors are always held accountable at a different level because they have to answer what the junior officers did.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they're
vicariously responsible for those issues.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess now that leads me to the situation with the SRC and the comment. I just want to say this, Mr. Sanfando, I agree with you. I think the elected officials should wait. I think the senior public officers should get the increase. The one area that I'm not sure, because I've said this before and I'm kind of waffling, so if you don't like it, what can I tell you? I'm not 100% determined what my opinion is one way or the other. Should office holders like the current commissioners experience the increase? There's a part of me that says yes. If she's underpaid, regardless of how good of a job she's doing, she's underpaid. There's a part of me that says no, because to some extent, the public, and by extension, future office holders, that's a sign where it might seem as though you're rewarding less than stellar performance, depending on your opinion of her performance. So that's like a catch-22. You don't necessarily want that message to go out there, both to the general public and to public servants or that office in particular. But then to some extent, is it fair? I'm not entirely sure, but I do think, and I'm willing to just say it, the public, the elected officials, Prime Minister, opposition leader, MPs, ministers, they should all wait. They should all wait because they are making the decisions. And again, if they want to say we're all in this together, don't accept 20-something% or whatever it is they're getting, or 40-something% in some cases, and you're offering people 4%. Yeah, and with that said, we are more or less coming out of time. So let me not... Professor, I understand what you said about revenue, and that's just one thing where I get it, you're right. But the kind of revenue shortfalls you're talking about, I am afraid it's even greater than what the deficit is, and I'll leave that there. More than a few hundred million, it's several billion regularly. But ASP Arun, 16 days of activism. I think there's a couple of things.
Two things I want to say again quickly, or say now quickly. With respect to domestic violence, we want to encourage persons to look for support, look for the assistance, contact your nearest police station who can assist you to get onto the gender-based violence unit. And as a society, let us support our survivors, including not shaming and victim blaming our survivors. Let's support them. It's like somebody fall in a ditch, and the first thing you're looking to do is blame them for getting in the ditch when they are looking for your assistance to get out of the ditch. Yeah. So this is basically what we need. We need to support our survivors to overcome these issues of domestic violence. And we can all do it if we contribute, if we come in and assist them.
And actually, I think I need to just say, yes, I understand police credibility is an issue, but with regards to the gender-based violence unit, there was only one time I saw maybe a negative story in the press. Yeah. And even then, there was a bit of an explanation for it. Yeah. And just based on how the police communicates these issues and what we've seen with the public's interaction, I think to some level, and this is just my opinion, you could kind of take these situations of the police and kind of say, well, you could isolate it from the general perception. Yeah.
I mean, we are here to help. Not every case is the best case scenario. Not everything works out, but the police are here to help. We can only work within the ambits of the law. So we have a lot of laws available to the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and to the citizens to utilize the Domestic Violence Act, the Offences Against the Person Act, the Sexual Offences Act, and a number of in Trafficking in Persons Act, there are a number of acts that come in to assist the officers and the citizens to address the issues that they're experiencing with domestic violence.
All right, and with that said, if there's any deficiencies with regards to how domestic violence is being handled, I would argue that a lot of it might be with regards to the limitations on laws. That would require legislative intervention, not police intervention. And I'll just go back to that point. I think a lot of our issues are because of the limitations in governance and legislation, and that needs to be fixed before we could fix a lot of things. I mean, look, right now they're trying to bring a revenue authority to replace Board of Inland Revenue, and the first thing that came to my mind when I saw that headline is, what are the guarantees that the revenue authority will not eventually turn into whatever the Board of Inland Revenue and Customs are currently? What's to prevent it from just turning into what it tried to replace? What guarantees do we have? I don't know. And that's one of the reasons why I said, really, it starts from the top. And if we just want to start with one root thing, it's accountability. But again, if the people at the top, we can't hold them accountable, how are they going to hold the senior public servants accountable? And it go down the line. So I understand where you're coming from, Mr. Sanfan. I know perhaps this is where we're going to have a very different philosophy on where to start fixing the country. But that's the beauty of the debate. Apologies if you thought that my rant was directed emotionally at you. It was not. With that said, folks, make today a good day, as Mr. Shah would always say. And yes, remember your allegiance to the Republic, primarily before any political entity. Hopefully, we could see some more of that in the next general election. Remember to stay safe, and
today's a month before Christmas. Huh?
It's a month before Christmas. I actually did think about that this morning. Yeah, so
we'll be looking for this stocky person who breaks in people's houses on Christmas Eve and plants presents.
It's too early for Christmas police jokes, ASP Arun. I know. Hopefully we will see ASP Arun next week. However, it's nice to be nice. Thank you, ASP Arun, for joining me. Thanks to all the callers for your contributions. And we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
WESN.
This holiday season, bring the magic of Christmas home with WESN's Joy of Christmas. Relive timeless classics, from the laughter to the heartwarming moments that make the season unforgettable.
Hey, like the lamp, not the rat, like the lamp, not the rat!
Santa's coming to town!
Santa!
Oh my gosh!
Woo!
Oh, baby.
Experience the joy of WESN special productions, crafted to bring you new stories and cherished memories. This year, let WESN bring the joy of Christmas to your home.
Merry